This is the story of how a single declined transaction at an exclusive private club permanently shattered a queen's illusion of absolute financial immunity. In less than 24 hours, the highly anticipated payday of Queen Camilla's inner circle transformed into the physical staging ground of her absolute isolation. What looked like a routine audit of the royal treasury was actually a bloodless, calculated execution of institutional warfare. What Camilla just realized, sitting in the suffocating silence of her private study, as her panicked advisors called to report their frozen bank accounts, is that the crown on her head carries no currency against the unyielding financial governance of the royal bloodline. In this video, we are going to unpack the secret, desperate financial power grab Camilla attempted under the cover of the king's ongoing vulnerabilities. We will examine how she tried to weaponize the sovereign grant and the Privy Purse, attempting to place her private public relations network and aristocratic allies on the permanent, taxpayer-funded royal payroll, using the implicit threat of hidden files and past secrets as leverage. We will break down the exact forensic metadata trail that Prince William uncovered within the royal accounting committees. By the end of this analysis, you will understand the silent, ruthless retaliation that left Camilla staring at a rejected ledger, trapped by the terrifying realization that she actually owns absolutely nothing. To comprehend why this institutional trap snapped shut so brutally, one must first dismantle the towering illusion of absolute supremacy Camilla had spent 3 decades meticulously constructing. For 30 years, her entire trajectory was defined by a highly sophisticated media campaign designed to outlast public outrage, sanitize her history, and systematically erase the enduring legacy of Princess Diana. She operated under the firm, unwavering belief that because she held complete psychological dominance over King Charles, she inherently held the master keys to the entire financial apparatus of the monarchy. Her inner circle, an elite network of media strategists and aristocratic loyalists, had grown to believe they were entirely untouchable, assuming the transition of the reign granted them a blank check to siphon the wealth of the crown. That sense of invincibility manifested in increasingly bold financial choices, recognizing the inherent fragility of her position as a consort, and facing the stark reality of the king's health crisis. Camilla was gripped by a sophisticated form of commercial desperation. She understood that her current supremacy and the loyalty of the expensive public relations machine that keeps her relevant is tied entirely to the lifetime of her husband. She knows that once the crown transitions to Prince William, her financial leverage drops to absolute zero. Driven by this panic, Camilla attempted a breathtaking secret administrative maneuver designed to secure a permanent, state-funded treasury for her shadow court before the window of opportunity slammed shut. Behind closed doors, she quietly directed her private office to submit a revised, highly confidential memorandum to the keeper of the Privy Purse and the Sovereign Grant Oversight Committees. The paperwork contained an extraordinary demand. Camilla was attempting to formally embed her private network of media fixers and elite club allies into the permanent, lifetime civil service payroll of the royal household. To ensure the paperwork was processed, she subtly weaponized her history. Palace insiders noted an orchestrated pressure campaign utilizing the implicit threat of hidden files, and passed palace secrets as an unspoken ultimatum against the king's remaining traditional courtiers. She fundamentally believed that the fear of a public scandal would force the treasury to simply rubber stamp the request, assuming that a consort's ambition could override the ancient, unyielding architecture of royal funding. What Camilla fundamentally failed to anticipate was that the administrative machinery she sought to manipulate was already being forensically monitored by the ultimate financial gatekeeper of the crown. While she was busy executing her strategy through the accounting offices, Prince William was quietly protecting the perimeter. When William assumed his role as the Prince of Wales, he did not just inherit the multi-billion-dollar Duchy of Cornwall, he assumed a profound overarching responsibility for the long-term financial integrity of the institution. William, a man who has carried the silent, enduring grief of his mother's public humiliation, saw the paper trail for exactly what it was. It was a hostile takeover of the monarchy's treasury. Catherine, the Princess of Wales, has offered nothing but uncomplaining sacrifice to the crown, operating her massive philanthropic initiatives with flawless financial transparency, never once demanding unauthorized taxpayer funds for a private echo chamber. William has watched it all, and he has remembered everything. When the unauthorized payroll memorandum was routed through the treasury, It immediately triggered a highly classified financial alert that landed directly on William's desk. Together with his senior financial advisors, William conducted a silent forensic audit of the submission logs. They uncovered the extensive metadata trail of Camilla's private office, attempting to bypass standard auditing consultation and pressure the accountants under the guise of the king's direct wishes. They saw the precise, calculated attempt to permanently siphon off a piece of the sovereign wealth to manufacture a royal aesthetic for her non-royal network. The moral outrage within the bloodline was absolute, but in the upper echelons of the House of Windsor, you do not react with emotional screaming matches or leaked tabloid stories. You react with weaponized restraint. The retaliation was executed with chilling, bureaucratic precision, turning the very rules of accounting into a clinical guillotine. William did not confront his stepmother, nor did he spark a public scandal that would distress his father. Instead, he activated his absolute authority over the royal estate's financial frameworks. A new internal directive was quietly issued to the keeper of the Privy Purse and the royal banking partners. The execution of their revenge culminated on the morning of the royal household's highly anticipated end-of-month payroll cycle. As Camilla's private network of strategists and allies checked their accounts, expecting the massive influx of sovereign wealth they had been promised, the trap snapped shut with breathtaking speed. The digital transfers never arrived. When her senior media operative attempted to use a newly issued royal corporate card at a private London club, it was immediately declined. The VIP accounts had been permanently frozen. The physical payroll sheets delivered to Camilla's private office for her routine review revealed a devastating visual humiliation. Every single name associated with her private network had not been approved. They had been cleanly struck through with a single, unyielding red ink line stamped with an administrative denial from the office of the Prince of Wales. Her shadow court had been entirely expunged from the sovereign grant. She was being financially contained. Camilla sat alone in her office, staring at the physical proof of her absolute insolvency. Her financial empire had been dismantled in a single keystroke. The loyalty of her expensive public relations network evaporated the exact second the funding was severed. As the panic of total institutional isolation set in, she looked toward the encrypted telephone to demand the king intervene, entirely unaware that the silence waiting for her would change the reading of absolutely everything. The heavy, encrypted telephone receiver felt like ice against her ear as the secure line connected from the isolated quiet of her private study to the king's office. In the echoing, suffocating silence of the palace, Camilla presented her grievances with the breathless, practiced urgency of a woman whose entire financial fortress was suddenly in freefall. She laid out the humiliating digital rejections, the frozen VIP corporate accounts, the devastating red line drawn through the royal payroll sheet, and the clinical administrative blockade orchestrated by Prince William. She demanded an immediate sovereign intervention. She fully expected King Charles to summon the keeper of the Privy Purse, overrule his heir, and reinstate the lifetime taxpayer-funded salaries she had so carefully mapped out for her shadow court. For 3 decades, this exact dynamic had been her ultimate safety net. Charles had fractured his relationship with the British public, fundamentally altered the trajectory of the monarchy, and absorbed immense global criticism, all to ensure she would one day wield the absolute executive power of a queen. She assumed that the unspoken threat of her media operatives leaking hidden files and past secrets would force his hand. But that is where the narrative shifts completely, not because of a grand, dramatic argument across the secure line, but because of a devastating, unyielding silence. King Charles did not summon his financial aides to issue a royal countermand. He did not order the Treasury to unfreeze the bank accounts or reinstate the corporate cards. Instead, he met his wife's frantic demands and the implicit blackmail of her public relations network with a heavy, agonizing exhaustion that carried the absolute weight of the monarchy's financial and constitutional future. The king's silence was not a sign of a husband's indifference. It was the profound, calculated concession of a reigning monarch who had just been forced to face the harsh reality of his own shifting reign and the absolute limits of his treasury. Charles understands what Camilla refuses to accept. The survival of the House of Windsor no longer depends on paying off the public relations operatives of the present, but on the unshakable, legally binding financial stability of the future, a future entirely managed by Prince William. By refusing to intervene, the king quietly validated the administrative guillotine that William had dropped. He signaled to the entire palace apparatus and to the government accounting committees monitoring the sovereign grant that the true governing authority over the institution's wealth had already transitioned to the Prince of Wales. Intervening to protect Camilla's private payroll network now would mean declaring a public institutional war against his own heir, risking a catastrophic parliamentary scandal over the extortion of taxpayer funds. In that agonizingly quiet conversation, Charles chose the monarchy over her. He chose the financial survival of the bloodline, and in doing so, he left Camilla sitting in her office, facing the terrifying realization that her ultimate shield had just dissolved. This devastating silence exposes the raw, fragile underbelly of what can only be described as Camilla's profound commercial desperation. To the outside world, she wears the crown jewels and travels in state-funded luxury, creating the glittering illusion of absolute impenetrable wealth. But the cold, economic and constitutional reality of the British monarchy is that she actually owns nothing. She holds no independent royal wealth, and she possesses no inherent authority over the Duchy of Cornwall, the Privy Purse, or the sovereign grant. A permanent spot on the royal payroll for a private public relations fixer is not merely a salary. It is the ultimate state-funded luxury and administrative blank check that guarantees lifelong elite status, total immunity from financial scrutiny, and the ability to drain the sovereign wealth long after a reign ends. Camilla knew that the moment King Charles is no longer on the throne, her institutional currency drops to absolute zero. She becomes entirely dependent on the financial grace and favour of King William V. Her push to embed her aristocratic allies into the permanent accounting fabric of the state was born out of a suffocating awareness that her time at the top is strictly finite, and that without state-funded leverage, her expensive media loyalists would abandon her instantly. William's decision to execute a forensic audit and permanently strike those names from the ledger was a masterclass in institutional containment. He weaponized the accounting laws of the state to lay bare her financial vulnerability, revealing that without the explicit approval of the Prince of Wales, her personal empire is completely insolvent and fundamentally bankrupt. He proved that the sovereign's wealth cannot be held hostage by the implicit threats of a shadow court. The deeper meaning behind this silent execution of revenge became highly visible in the weeks that followed. The declined corporate card at the exclusive London club was not just a banking glitch for Camilla's team, it was the ultimate visual representation of an institutional quarantine. The subtle details of this shifting power are now visible to anyone who understands the silent language of the British monarchy. Palace courtiers, financial advisors, and elite club members who possess an exquisite radar for where the true power lies immediately recognize the shift. The message was sent through 1,000 minor administrative updates that, aligning with Camilla's private financial ambitions, is now a fast track to institutional exile. This is where the story shifts from the cold execution of containment to the undeniable restoration of the true order. As Camilla's borrowed financial power evaporated, Catherine, the Princess of Wales, retained her rightful place with an effortless, quiet dominance. The contrast between the two women could not have been more stark, and the institution knows exactly who holds the true power over the royal treasury. Catherine has never needed to submit unauthorized memorandums to the keeper of the Privy Purse to secure her extended family's financial legacy. She does not need to weaponize past secrets or extort the sovereign grant to project authority or maintain public relevance. Catherine herself commands the highest level of institutional respect, not through manipulation or paid media operatives, but because her power is rooted in uncomplaining sacrifice, flawless execution of duty, and absolute financial transparency. When Catherine champions a cause, it generates millions for the British economy organically. Her influence is authentic, earned through years of silent endurance and absolute loyalty to the crown. By ensuring that the financial integrity of the monarchy remains untainted by Camilla's private overreach, William was doing more than protecting the government's ledgers. He was offering a silent, devastating defense of his mother's legacy, proving that the true wealth of the institution belongs exclusively to the rightful heirs. For years, William has watched the quiet, systematic attempts to elevate Camilla's media network using the very funds that should preserve the crown's history. By fiercely guarding the treasury and invalidating the unauthorized payroll, William guaranteed that the prestige of the monarchy will be preserved. He ensured that Catherine and her children will never have to share their financial heritage with a manufactured, state-funded shadow court built on blackmail. It was not an act of petty vindictiveness, it was the ultimate silent restoration of order, executed through the undeniable permanence of institutional accounting protocol. The boundaries have been firmly re-established. sending a clear signal to the world that the ancient organism of the British monarchy cannot be permanently hollowed out by clever public relations, nor can its treasury be hijacked through emotional manipulation or the threat of hidden files. The Crown protects its assets, its history and its bloodline at all costs. Camilla believed that by outlasting her critics and securing the title of Queen, she had achieved absolute permanent victory. She thought she had conquered the institution and secured the master keys to its ultimate vaults. But she failed to recognize that true royal authority cannot be taken by storm or secured through administrative tricks. It requires the deep foundational legitimacy of sovereign duty. As she sat in the quiet luxury of her office, looking at the heavy red line drawn through the payroll sheet that contained her dismantled future, the grand illusion vanished completely. She may still wear the state jewels for now, but everyone inside the palace walls, and soon everyone in the world, knows the truth. The trap has snapped shut. The financial borders of the estate have been permanently redrawn. The reign of the shadow court has been entirely dismantled, leaving behind only the cold reality of a consort who is merely a temporary guest in a house she sought to rule, and the undeniable truth that the era of Prince William has already begun. Thank you for exploring this deep dive into the hidden power dynamics and financial battles of the British monarchy. If you found this forensic analysis compelling, please consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a comment below with your thoughts on Prince William's decisive administrative retaliation. Your engagement helps us continue to uncover the unspoken truths behind the palace walls.